Welcome to the next arithmetic training video on percentages. Let's start with what that word means. The word percent literally translates to for every 100, per meaning for every, and cent meaning 100 like in century or cents in $1. So if we have, for example, 36%, that means for every 100, expect 36. So for example, 36% of people prefer peanut M&Ms. We would imagine if you found 100 people that 36 of them like peanut M&Ms better than the other kinds. Because it's for every 100, we can also write it as a fraction, 36 over 100, and of course we could simplify that by dividing and getting down to 9 25ths. Also, if you think about that as division, right? 36 divided by 100, we could also say that that is 0.36 or 36 hundredths. If we're going to go the other direction, let's start with a different number. Let's say we have 4/5, right? We're starting with a fraction. Just like we did with the division already, 4 divided by 5 will give us the decimal, 0.8 or 8/10. And then we can multiply by 100 instead of divide to get back to the percent. Also, you may already be familiar with just moving the decimal place, but really what you're doing is dividing by 100 or multiplying by 100. Let's summarize that process. To go from a percent to a decimal, like we did with 36%, either divide by 100 or move 2 decimal places to the left. 2 decimal places to the left. To go from a decimal to percent, you're going to do it the other way around. So you either move 2 decimal places to the right or multiply by 100. And then just like we talked about, if you're going to a fraction, you're just going to put it over 100 like we did with 36 and then simplify. And to go the other way, you can change the fraction to a decimal like we did with 4/5 and then change it into a percentage because it's already a decimal. One thing about percentages you want to remember is they can never stand alone. They always have to be of something. So for example, tithing is 10% of one's income. In some places, tax is still 7% of the price added back on. If someone tells you, hey, I lost 12%, your response would probably be, what? Here's an example of that. The boss says, I need you to give 110%. Fine, I've only been giving 20%, so I guess that brings me up to 22%. He should have asked or clarified there's 110% of something. So if it's of something, we should be able to find specific percents of something. So if we have an example problem like what is 26% of 300, here's our process. We're going to change that to a decimal just like we talked about in the last screen, and then multiply it by the total amount. So that gives us, plug into the calculator, you just get 78. Right, second step, multiply. You can also use it as a formula, part. Right, we didn't know the part equals percent as a decimal times the whole. That gives us that answer. A lot of students will know how to do that. There's also lots of different ways to think about percentages and to find that, especially around the world. Right? Different cultures and education systems teach different things, so be open-minded about that as you help students. Let's talk real quick about why it works, though. So if we have another way to think about it is we're trying to figure out 26%. We could figure out whatever 1% is and then multiply that by 26. To find 1%, we're going to take this and divide by 100 because that's the total amount, and then 100% gives us 3. Right? And then we'll multiply it by 26. Oh, either way, we get 78. So in the first way that I did it, I divided by 100 to get that decimal. And then the second way, I divided the 300 by 100 to get 1%. So it really just changes the order, where you divide by 100 or multiply first. Either way works. All right. And this one, just to clarify, when you have more than 100%, which is okay, we would multiply 1.15 times 28. That should give us more than 28 because it's more than 100%, so 32.2 as one more example. All right. One thing to be careful of, you will see, especially on these problems that are small that have the word of, you'll hear some students say, well, I multiplied because of means multiply, which often it does with percentage problems, but not always. You really want to be careful of that. Here's a warning for you. Oh no. Of does not always mean multiply. Sometimes the problem is just talking about a pair of socks, right? Here's another example. What percent of 70 is 14? We could interpret that as we don't know the percent, maybe it's a variable, and we can solve it this way, but some students will see it and say the word of, multiply 70 times 14, and that's their answer. So you want to really be careful of. Alright, that's it for percentages. Go ahead and watch the next video on scientific notation.